Button. Shut the fuck up.
I hit the fucking button.
Yes. Button pushed. That means we're started on it's 27. Episode 27. And if I sound I've said this before. I'm surprised every fucking time.
I'm not gonna one day maybe I won't be surprised that and I'll actually believe you when you say the number, but is it really?
Because you've only been here for half of them.
Well, yeah, and we're about to have our 1 year anniversary.
Shut your front door.
Yeah, that's right. April 1st. Worst April Fool's joke ever. It just kept going.
Terrible.
Sorry.
I mean, it was really
Sorry.
good.
To our 3 listeners, I got to tell you.
I had another situation.
I'm over the moon.
Where someone randomly brought up the podcast in a work-related meeting. It's just
you're so getting fired.
Yeah.
This is going great.
You're getting fired.
Shout out to Sari.
That's why it keeps coming up.
I was like, oh
man, I couldn't be happier.
Yeah.
We got people posting on the LinkedIn. I've heard the kids call it
the LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's all the kids on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Now all getting around in their fuck safety make money t-shirts.
Fake
that was pretty bad.
Safety make money. And an OG listener, by the way. So that's pretty kick-ass.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the time when, because our number 1 fan, for instance, I think listened to about 6 seconds of episode 1 before he made a lot of conclusions about it. But eventually somebody's going to see that shirt and go, see, these guys they don't give a shit. They actually hate it and they hate everybody. We don't hate everybody.
In that same meeting, I had someone he's like, oh, what's, because she said something about punk rock safety. And I was like, oh, that's great. And someone was like, what's punk rock safety? And I was like, oh, it's just this podcast. Mine's, oh, that's your podcast. Oh, okay, never mind.
Moving on.
Yeah. I think I couldn't have had a better review.
It's a fucking movement, bitch.
Like, share, subscribe.
Smash that like. I feel pretty bad. Was it last time before? I skipped over new tattoos completely, and we really left Dave hanging.
Yeah,
and I feel like he had to sort of rush through it.
Did you get any new tattoos or brands, as the case may be?
Not since the last episode, but hopefully you did, Ron. Don't let us down.
No, I got nothing, man.
Ah, shit.
I got nothing.
We'll get
it's coming.
Maybe when we catch up before this episode comes out, we'll get some matching tattoos in LA.
Oh,
there you go.
The PRS roll of the dice.
Yeah, imagine if we both got Ben's favorite little punk rock safety roll of the dice tattoos matching, and we sent him that photo. That would
before he got one.
He'd have a breakdown. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another breakdown.
Another breakdown.
Perfect. What have you been listening to, boys?
Well, I got Laura Jane Grace behind me because she just released a song that is a bit of an earworm. And I don't know, it may not be something people want to listen to. It's called Your God, God's Dick. And it just goes from there.
Oh,
and
that escalated quickly.
Yeah. So...
And we're down to 5 listeners again. We'd made it up to 8. If you already ordered the merch, sorry, no returns, man.
Yeah, no returns. That's how we get you.
Yep.
Yep.
It's not the fucking Gap. That's what it says on the. That's our return policy. It's not the Gap. Just wear the fucking shirt.
What about you?
All right, cool.
I've got since I'm in Texas, I've gone with the Butthole Surfers.
Yes, he has.
Bit of Texas pop punk, and not from this is a 1987 pick when punk rock hadn't got so safe yet. So there
is nudity, there's fire. If you're not on YouTube, you're missing out.
You are missing out.
You're missing out on the backgrounds. Looking at the 3 of us is probably not a big loss for you. So. I've got the Dead Kennedys back here.
How good.
Oh,
I
nice.
just, there's been a lot of talk about punching Nazis in this country and probably other parts of the world. And I think any opportunity you have to punch a Nazi, you should fucking punch
Punch
Nazis.
a Nazi. I think
And
we
the
endorse
dead
Nazi
Kennedys
punch.
think so too.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We're all
Awesome.
about the Nazi punching.
Good policy.
Yeah.
Yep, that's right. Fuck safety, make money, and punch Nazis.
We
Always.
get like a shirt like punch safety Nazis. Is that-
Ooh,
Oh,
that's cool.
oh. Okay. Well, the graphics on that one are going to be a little tricky, but
you just got to have like someone with a clipboard or something.
okay.
Okay.
We'll
Like
work it
kick
out.
a guy with a clipboard in the nuts or something like
Yeah.
that.
If there's anything we need, it's more merch.
Yeah.
It's more choices on the merch.
That is like
Yeah.
60% of the reason we're doing this, right? Just to like
I
not sell
do.
It's more
shirts,
than that. It's more than
make
that.
new ones.
I
It's
do.
just
I do like a T-shirt that says "Punch safety people in the nuts." I think that's. We'll kick safety people in the nuts.
punch a safety Nazi in the dick.
Yeah.
It's just a we could probably do it without words, and then we'll do a show about the semiotics of the signage
Excellent.
Yes.
of a safety person getting dick
And get
kicked.
yet
Uh,
another fantastic review.
You know what I'm going to say?
you
You know,
lovers
we
of
had a
square
little
up.
feedback here that the first, 7 or 8 minutes of this is is once you get past that, it's pretty good. I
Yeah,
feel like this is a strong first 7 or 8 minutes.
I think it's great.
This seems good. We're punching Nazis. We're kicks to the dick. Stuff
I don't know
mean
what else we
safety.
need, to be
Just
honest.
it writes itself.
We should say junk so it's sort of unisex, equal opportunity
Okay.
kicks. Yeah,
So
kick to the
But,
junk.
but
we're-
we're all in America. Equal opportunity isn't a thing.
yeah, yeah.
It's, that's right. It's gone.
We got
Dave,
rid of
for
that.
the record, is in Texas right now.
Yeah.
So
I
it's sort of
am.
it's the opposite of that.
Yeah,
Alone
I
in the
am.
snow.
I'm very much Gulf of America adjacent in Houston. In Houston.
Oh, Cowboy Dave.
In
Yes.
Houston.
Perfect. Enjoying it, I'm sure.
Yeah. Very much so.
All right, boys. What are we talking about today?
Yeah, what are we talking about?
Well, I kind
Our
of figured.
pre-planning is impeccable,
Well,
like usual.
since you mentioned Nazis, I kind of thought it'd be good talking about power and politics and how it plays out in safety because punk's kind of a bit like fuck the establishment and fuck politics, but
Yeah.
organizations don't kind of work like that. And I think it was Charles Perrow
It's
kind of said that
weird. Yeah.
Charles Perrow kind of said like power is an issue in safety more important than culture. And so yeah, I kind of like to hear your guys' views about does power get in the way of safety? Does it fuck things up? Does it make things happen? How do we navigate power in our organizations and fuck authority, really?
I mean, that's it.
Is that it? Are we done? Are we done?
Yeah. Did we solve
Yeah.
it?
I think
Um,
that's that. Yeah, closing it out. We never
yeah.
got past the first 7 or 8 minutes to anything good. So you're welcome.
Ah, suck it. Yeah. Well, so okay, so
That was a good question, Dave. Is power the solution or the problem?
Yeah.
Yes.
yes, power is the solution. What do we mean by power or politics in this particular situation? Like what are we talking about?
Well, I think for me, it's kind of like how in more contemporary safety we talk a lot about decentralized decision making, local autonomy. The HRO folk have talked about deference to expertise for a long time. We know organizations are organized around being very hierarchical. I'm your boss and I'm your boss's boss, and I get to wear the bigger pants and get more money and make all the important decisions, even though I don't know shit about the things I'm deciding about. It's a bit like our friendly door manufacturers and the CEO doing some better door design inside that company. So I'm just really curious as you view. It's been talked about a lot in the literature, and it sort of plays out on a daily basis for our three listeners. So it'd be good to kind of talk about what do we think about that and how do we navigate it? So I don't think I answered your question about what do I mean by power, but I just mean maybe I mean decision, who makes the call, who's got the authority.
Yeah. I mean, when you say authority too, I'm glad you say like I know Dave Woods, he was very much like talk about authority, like who has authority over what. And I think that's a pretty useful thing because like in organizations, you'll have people who have authority over obviously money, resources, tools, but also access to others. I remember, and I can't remember who did the study, but there was a study in like social network research where they looked at within a social network in an organization who has the most power, and they found that like executive assistants have like as much or more power than like vice presidents because they control access, to things.
But
And so,
that's the word, Ron, I think, is it's less about authority and more about control.
mm,
And that's
Yeah, okay.
I'm gonna give a little bit of credit here, and I know he's not listening, but Dr. Schlung, uh, among all the other things,
I hope he
I
is.
I think talks no, but I do think talks he addresses that issue of control pretty well, right? And when it becomes about controlling other people, I think that's when the junk kicks have to get administered, right? And it's less about authority. And I think safety people get worried about. And I was talking to a guy uh, in a company the other day who's meant to be overseeing safety at 5 different sites. And the thing that stuck out is he said, I don't have any teeth to enforce this stuff, right? He was worried about control, right? Not influence or helping other people. And I think Dr. Schlong, if you're listening, right, that's the good part, man. Take
Yeah.
it easy. Um,
And
so
maybe
I'm
just
less worried about power,
I'm
I
sure he's
guess,
going to
than
give us credit
how
for that. He's going to be like, maybe those guys aren't so bad
those
after
guys are all right. Not the lover of zero, Dave Provan.
not.
He's not all right,
he's part of the
clearly.
problem. I mean, I think it's really interesting, right? And I guess there's a paper by Armkov and the team that talked about, I think the title was something like "When Safety Science Meets the Practitioners" and the marginalization of safety sort of specific knowledge. And it was actually criticizing more like the institutionalization of safety, ISO standards, the safety profession, and organizations going, "Oh, who's best to tell us about how to manage safety? Oh, here's a safety person with an international standard. They know more than my guys who've been driving and operating trains for 40 years, right? It's like, what would they know about operating trains safely? I've got, this safety person over here." So I think it's not just necessarily, and they call it something like model monopoly, who's got the monopoly on the ideas as it pertains to that particular issue. And so it might not just be the control aspect, it might be kind of like who's seen to be the one who knows the most. Um, you know, and when
I
we
think
say,
some of that
yeah,
is that's here's the weird thing too about that is some people like that, right? They like being able to say, yeah, but that's Dave's job. He's the one that knows the most about the safety. And that's comforting, I guess.
I think
So
as a
maybe,
manager, that's comforting. But how many frontline workers,
maybe.
if you talk to like crane operators and train drivers, he says, I want to listen to what this person over here with
Yeah,
the board
I
thinks I
don't know
should
if it's
do
listening.
in my
I
job.
think they just want to be able to say, I can offload the weight
Yeah.
of decision making about this. I don't want that guy to tell me what to do, but if there's a safety problem, it's definitely that dude. And I think there's
We know
I
who
think
the
that's
safety
that
problem is.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's that mismanagement of power, right?
I've
Or
seen what you're
yeah.
talking about too, like in terms of like a lot of times I hear safety people in organizations be like, "Oh, we don't want to be the authoritarians. We want to be, consultants in the organization or, support."
Yep.
And then you go and talk to the workers and they're like, "Just tell me what the fuck to do.
Yeah.
I don't need you to come and like just
Except then don't tell me.
yeah, exactly, except that your solution sucks,
Yeah.
but like, there is that tension, right? Like between they want someone who can help them figure out what they need to do, but they want to retain some sense of control
Yeah.
over their work. Um, which I get, like, and I think that's, and I can't remember who said it. One of you dickheads said it, is
Was it smart? Because it was Dave.
yeah,
No.
but like, oh, see, now I forgot what it was.
Oh.
How funny.
I do have to point out that I was having a conversation the other day was someone said, I never would have I never would have thought you were somebody who really understood statistics. I don't think that was a compliment.
No,
No.
no, no, no.
Just
I,
an observation.
that's they could be look, they could be what is that? Is that looks, brains? I don't
Like you hear me talk and you go, I didn't think that guy could count,
know.
Yeah.
let alone do Bayesian network modeling.
But I
Anyway,
think what we're
neither here nor there.
describing is like, back to that guy. I think Ben, you were talking about a guy who's like, hey, I don't have any teeth over here or anything like that. Um, I think there's different sources of control. There's different sources of power or authority. And I think understanding where your leverage points are and what you actually can control is critical. And understanding how that control influences other people's control over their work. I think that's kind of what we're talking about because I think people will see it in a simplistic way, like, oh, I need to just move up in the organization and that gives me more control. Therefore, that will solve my problems.
Yeah,
Or, like the thing and I get that, yes, there's some truth to this, but I think it's a way oversimplification. Like, we need leadership buy-in in order to make change here.
Yeah.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Necessary, but not sufficient. Right.
I think,
exactly.
I mean, it's a good point. So I talked about structures in a few points before, but there is some pretty good models out there around like seven sources of power and pulls into
Yeah.
some of those different things like coercive power and socially constructed power and what that sort of looks like. Because I think, um, it's really important because ultimately, I guess, why I wanted to come at this topic is because, you know, can are decisions in an organization best made or made with the influence of the people who can make a really useful contribution to that decision, right? And I'd say on the most part, the answer is probably no. You know, um,
Yeah. I mean, I know Phil Smith, he has a paper on like air traffic control and how these sort of distributed systems are developed. And like he makes an argument, one of the biggest challenges you have is when you have the locus of information separate from the locus of control or decision authority, right?
Yeah.
And I think I know it's that sub guy, you know what I'm talking about? That guy that turned the ship around
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
Is it Dave
Uh-huh.
Arquette? Yeah, he makes the same kind of
Marquette.
argument.
Yeah.
Yeah, push the
yeah,
information
and
to the decision
I think some
down.
of those operations, which have been part of the HRO sort of research for a long time, like aviation um, and that is like I use that as a bit of an example for this. Like, and healthcare is another good one. Like the general manager of a hospital doesn't kind of walk into the operating room and go to the surgeon, stand aside, I got this, right? I'll tell you how to do this
Now that's what I
operation.
do.
Yeah, that's what Ben
I'm
does.
a doctor.
But the same in kind of like air traffic control. It's not like, get the fuck out of that seat, give me the headset. I've got this one.
I'll
Um,
show you.
Yeah.
but there's this idea about in lots of organizations then when we get more into your old industry, Ron, before you got fired this week. Oh, did you hear about that? Oh,
Oh shit.
did I? Oops.
Man,
Um,
that sucks.
that sucks.
We got the
Um,
heads up that we could talk about it on the pod, though.
Oh, that's
yeah.
good. What's
I've
this
got
meeting with HR that's right after this recording?
uh, I got
Ron thought it was HRO. It's just HR.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
way tougher meeting.
exactly.
but I think in other industries, very much we tell people how they should do their work, and yeah, I think that's a bit of a mistake. Uh, not to do that more of as a participative discussion.
Yeah. Well, and I think so. There's I think that mindset needs to apply everywhere, right? Like, yes, to the workforce and hey, let's engage them and on, helping understand what it is that they need in order to get their job done. But, back to the point about, sometimes people are like, oh, that's Dave's job. At some point we need to, be there to support them. Like if we're completely hands off, then all we're doing
Yeah.
is just getting in their way. Like, why do we, if it's 100% on them, then what the fuck are we
Yeah,
doing?
like
Um,
Well, and
Do we even need to do that across boundaries?
Oh man, don't get me started.
I was thinking about
Only
this
meaningful,
though,
only meaningful boundaries.
Ron, to your point about, at some point somebody in a position, I mean, positional authority has to do something. And I was having a conversation earlier today about this idea of risk acceptance, which this organization is wrestling with because the regulator says, I need to know at some level, right? When do you involve your accountable manager, or does everybody just make this case at the front line, make a decision? Well, there's the locus of expertise is at the front line. But at some point, when it's really risky work, I think even the folks at the front line want a little top cover. Like they still want to be involved, but maybe that's where that, if you want to call it positional power, but at least positional authority comes in, is you're saying,
Yeah.
look, I trust what you're saying, and I think we can, if you're okay, I'm okay, and I've got your back on this.
I think I like that language that you use. Like, I got your back on this. If you're okay, I'm okay. I've got your back. Like, I worked in one organization where, like, major hazard facilities, oil and gas, and the installation manager or the asset manager, so the senior person on site, was actually legally accountable for the safety of that facility, right? Like, actually carried jail time and a whole bunch of stuff. And then when you looked at the risk
Yeah.
system and the finance system, they couldn't even buy lunch on a credit card from a financial system point of view. And they couldn't sign off on anything other than a green risk because they were like 6 levels down in the organization. So you got this person who's running this really high risk asset and is legally accountable for that, for the safe operation of that high risk asset, that is completely disempowered by organizational process to do anything about that.
That
Like,
Yeah.
sounds cool.
which sounds
Fun. That's awesome. This is where the junk kicks come in, just
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
abandon.
like, I need to get
It's like Oprah. You get a kick, and you get a kick.
Yeah.
finance, you get a fucking kick. Yeah.
It looks exactly like what's happening behind Dave's head. Just
Yeah.
fire and
Fire.
everybody freaking the hell out.
But I think that's where that where we need kind of like role, responsibility, resources, decision rights, um, yeah, and support to all kind of line up. So it's one thing to expect people to, and they, I think to Ron's point, you don't just say just figure it out. You kind of make sure that the
But a lot
organization.
of people, but I do think a lot of people misread like Marquette's book. Ron, you
Yeah.
brought up Turn the Ship Around. Good book if you're into that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I think people misread that. And I've actually worked with a couple of folks who I think took that to that point of um, extreme ownership, if you're familiar with
Oh
some of
yeah.
that, or this idea of, and it sounds good, right? You give people this ultimate authority, and I think what it feels like is just getting left out in the fucking breeze,
Yeah,
right? Because now anything I do could be wrong, right?
and it probably
100%.
So
usually,
it is
I
that it
suspect
is that
usually is.
balance. Thank you. So I
Well,
and then I
You're welcome.
yeah.
appreciate that. I really set it up though pretty well. It's exactly what a guy who can't understand math would do.
The signs are there if you're looking.
I mean, look at me. Just look shocked all the time.
um, but I mean, like a lot of this to me just comes back to that kind of authority responsibility double bind, right? Like people are
Look at
responsible.
him. He wanted to say double bind the
Double
whole
bind.
time.
It's
Double? What are you
That's
what are you
it's
talking about?
like a bonus word for you.
That was
actually a really well placed soundbite, Ron. I'd give you credit for bringing this up.
Yeah. I mean, if we knew how
you're
to do sound
fucking
bites,
welcome.
I mean, yeah, just I wrote about it in one of my papers.
Nailed it. Oh, drink.
God, here we go.
Um, we're doing the greatest hits here. This is good.
I love that for you.
But yeah, I mean, like to me, this speaks to the overall need because I think it comes back to what we talked about with like people are the solution, right? Where like sure, but that's not. like what you would say been the full credit answer necessarily. Like,
People are the solution to Soylent Green.
yes,
They're
exactly.
deeply embedded in the solution. People's
Exactly.
solution should be we should just sell a jar of kind of jelly called People's Solution. God, the merch ideas are fast and furious here.
I love it. But
Okay,
like it it's not as
proceed.
simple as just throwing all the authority down to the people. It's a function of what do those people need in order to do whatever it is they're going to do, and how can we make sure they have it. And sometimes, to your point, that's they need cover. They need, they need maybe someone to come in there and point them in the direction that, hey, this makes sense. Let's go in this direction.
Yeah.
Sometimes they need a procedure, maybe even, you know what I mean? Like it's all dependent on the situation and the task. So just like throwing our hands up and saying, no, it's all this, or being all hands on and all, I don't know, Nazi about it and saying it's all that. Um, both of those.
I
Everyone's a
think it's
Nazi.
like
Micromanager, Nazi.
Nuts.
it's like the answer in sort of complex in all of the pretty much all of our discussions around complex
It depends.
complex systems. Yeah, well, well, and it's balance, right?
Yeah.
And it's all about balance and paradox, right? Because I think it's sort of we're talking here about extreme views, which is that people can't do anything that they need to do to get their work done, or people are expected to do everything and figure it out. And the reality is the messy middle, which is that people paying attention in your organization where it's too far one way or the other. Because a lot of times people don't want autonomy is actually to do with the power issues about how they're going to be how power will be applied in terms of consequences for them if they're seen
Yep.
to do a mistake. And that's why they come to you and go, just fucking tell me what to do. Because
Yep.
yes, I've got ideas about how we should do this, and yes, I think we could do it a whole lot better, but fuck it. Like,
Yeah.
it's just
It's
not
too
worth
risky to
it's
do it,
just
right?
not worth me. Like, I couldn't be fucked. I'm just going home. Um so like the whole discretionary effort.
Story of Dave's life.
Yeah.
That's that's like his autobiography.
He's like,
Autobiography.
Couldn't be
Couldn't
fucked.
be
I'm going
fucked. I'm
home.
going
well,
home.
fuck you guys. I'm going home. Speaking of Casa Bonita.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel like we glossed over a little bit that we had, I mean, days of fun without Ron.
Oh, it was.
Oh,
I
bullshit.
feel like we've got I feel like we've got nothing to talk about, Ben, since we've just spent so much time together in the last
Yeah.
week. That
Hand in hand, skipping along the street
skipping
without
along,
Ron. We did
Without
go though to
big
Casa Bonita.
matching snow angels holding hands.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Near the brown and yellow snow. It did snow a lot while Dave was here. We did go to Casa Bonita. If you're not familiar, you should probably the best reference point is South Park.
Yeah, best
Look
restaurant
up
in
the
the world.
South Park
The
episode
Disneyland of
about
restaurants. Ron,
Is
you
it
love it.
good?
and well, good is like it's an experience, Ron. So
Uh,
you got to take it in
yeah.
the sum of
Next,
everything that's happening.
we'll invite you like next time or the time after. We'll
You guys are so
The thing
sweet.
is, it's as advertised. Everybody thinks South Park could not be correct, and it is 100% accurate, isn't it, Dave?
absolutely
Yeah.
100%.
Okay.
That's fantastic.
100%. Yep. So that was a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
I didn't. I thought maybe we were going to talk about power as sort of power distance or
I
power
even got a drink bottle.
differential and kind
See?
of.
Check that out.
Oh yeah.
Ooh, this guy.
Went to the office, got a drink bottle.
Oh my God, you guys are
Ron's
so
got one though
cute.
too.
I do.
He
It's
just
just not
prefers
here.
cocaine water.
Yeah, like
Um,
power gradient's interesting. So,
Yeah.
and I guess even between practitioners, pilot, first officer, surgeon,
Yeah.
nurse, all these sorts of situations of operational teams and the power gradient within and between members of
Yeah.
operational teams is, I think, an important,
I
clearly
think that's
as well.
maybe more important to or more relevant to the safety discussion a lot of times than the safety professional is. Um, Especially in those professions like pilots. Holy shit, man. You know, this thing that happened up in DC and there was a runway incursion here with a successful go around, but I think yesterday. I mean,
And
pilots are
the
really hard on each other.
the barrel roll in Toronto.
Oh, well, that's a trick. It's
Yeah,
like a backside 180, I think, or something.
the lean air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but those professionals, clinicians are sort of well known for this too, but aviators, same way, mechanics, people with a lot of that sort of expertise, professional pride are often the ones that are hardest on the folks that do have a bad day. And I think sometimes there is no real power gradient when you look at an org chart, but maybe it's that implied power of having been around longer or not at the scene of an accident, I guess. Well, I wouldn't have landed upside down. I don't,
Yeah.
in their defense, they didn't land upside down. They just ended up that way.
Yeah, that was a good trick. I had a trick. You just hold my beer.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. And I think because to me, this gets back to the point that like the power differentials that are influencing people's decisions and actions don't just exist on the org chart. They can exist in all kinds of places. And, I think it's important for people to just ask the question, like, where would saying whatever the fuck you want be dangerous?
Well, I think
Not on this podcast.
it's a really good
Yeah.
it's a really good question, Ron. I think, and practically, what can people do? Like, think about those situations in your organization where, power is way out of balance. I was involved in investigating one double fatality based on, this frontline group were doing some wild shit, right, to solve a problem and innovating like crazy, and the newest member of the team actually was like called it out and said, "Look, like, what the hell are we doing? I've never seen anything like this before." And like a 62-year-old member of the crew who ended up being killed in the accident just said, well, if you don't fucking like it, just go sit in the lunchroom and let us men work this out. Like, that was
Which is
actually
exactly how our government now
and
runs here
they
in
were
the
like
US.
they were literally the exact same position. A 62-year-old, 40 years of experience, and like a
Yeah.
22-year-old with 2 months of experience. They had the exact same job, right? Um, but yeah, so I
And
think yeah,
I think that comes back to like Ed Shine talks about that a lot, right? The
well,
way
not
that
even
we treat
more really.
thank you. Miss you. Miss you, Ed. The way that we treat the newest members of the organization, right, is sort of an indicator of how power is viewed and
Yeah,
um, cultural norms around it. If we've already talked about culture, I think in one of our we solved culture already.
Well, that's good news.
that is great news.
But the way that we treat those newest members, that's not something on an org chart. Often that's you get through training and somebody puts their arm around you and goes, "Okay, dude,
Yeah.
I'm gonna need you to shut the fuck up. I'll show you how to do this."
Yeah,
But it's like where people feel like they got to tread carefully, where people feel like, okay, I got to make sure I wordsmith this a little bit so it comes across the right way. Like
Which is why
oftentimes,
Ron's getting fired.
this is 100% why I'm getting
yeah,
fired. Um,
because you're the problem.
this is
Ron, Ron's the problem.
Ron is the problem. There's a shirt.
That's a
Um,
shirt.
um like that, those are the places, and that's not always necessarily a bad thing, because like I think there are times when behavior gets regulated by these sorts of situations in a way that makes sense for the culture, for the environment, for whatever, right? Because you don't want to like just like do whatever the fuck you want at work,
Yeah,
right? Like you do, but like it doesn't work that way.
Again, why Ron's getting fired.
yeah, but I think it's the
Exactly. But you at least want to understand where those things are, because those are going to shape decisions and actions.
yeah.
And there may be times where those decisions and actions, like in the situation you're talking about, Dave, become consequential. Like all of a sudden now, the ability to not speak up, which, hey, yeah, there's a time when inexperienced people need to shut up and listen.
And
Like,
I think one of the things that again Dave Woods um talked about is this idea of role retreat as well. So, when you what we actually need in complex systems is people to extend the boundaries of their role and make sure that there's handoff points and overlaps and contributions and reciprocity and all of these things, the interactions between people that, and even across boundaries, for that
Hey,
joint, for that
I was
joint
going to say it, but you got it.
for that joint activity. But that's what it is actually joint activity. Whereas, if you got these power imbalances, you get this kind of role retreat, which is like, I'm just going to pull my fucking head in, sit down, shut up, do my job. And, and that actually makes an organization far more brittle and far more dangerous.
yeah,
So is
absolutely.
because everybody's a real professional safety person who listens to the podcast. I emphasize professional for all three of them. Is that something that a safety person then is involved in? Is sort of asking those questions? Ron, the question that you asked was sort of where am I going to get in trouble for speaking up, or where is it sort of dangerous
Yeah.
to ask a
Yeah.
question or speak out? So coming back to, because we started this as
And
sort of a
even
discussion
where,
about
but
power,
also I
but is
think
that
in what situations, like what is my operation? So,
Yeah.
so we know aviation is really focused on like crew resource management in the cockpit, right? Like
sure?
between pilot and so maybe it's even thinking about not just, where is it probably a problem, but between which people in my organization do I need to have really good, effective communication where there might be, power or politics at play. And those are obvious examples. If I've got a surgical team, if I've got, a flight crew, but every organization is going to have these teams or pairs of roles or something that's in their high risk parts of their operation that they're going to want to go, oh, I wonder how, I wonder what it's like between these roles.
I think though there's an assumption a lot of times. I like Ron's question because our brains sort of instinctively go to like, where am I going to get fucked on this? But looking at those things, Dave, like you've said, is I think
How
there's a
is the,
that's my autobiography. Where am I going to get fucked? Dave's given up and left. I'm still trying to figure it out. Ron's like, huh?
I'm still trying to
Um,
design. I've got it. I've got going on. I'm going to design a t-shirt for the merch store for Ron. It's going to be kind of like a nice nod to the PhD. It's going to have like a whole bunch of Ron heads on it that just says more Rons, and it's going to be
oh, I have
the
ideas. We
more.
could do
It's like
an aloha shirt.
the more joint cognitive activity you have, the more morons you need, or something like that. The more Rons you need.
I got an idea. Okay. So back to the point on this
There was a
intelligent
there was a point.
podcast.
There was a point.
Yeah. I think when you look at it and you go, this is where it really has to be important. There also seems to be a lot of assumption that because it's important, it's already happening. So,
Mm.
there's stories for decades, and you talked about flight crews, Dave, of these sort of assumptions of communication. They understand it, they know it, they're speaking a common language, and they assume something is understood and it's not. Um, that happens in medicine all the time. I think you and I were talking about uh, a, a team of folks that do the same sort of surgeries kind of over and over. They're used to one another. And then another person comes in when somebody's on vacation, and there's all these assumptions. They know it's important, right? But I think they miss that because they assume um, maybe professionally they've all got the same goal or experience or language.
Yeah, I think that was what was really interesting in Beth Lay's work that you guys probably know of was they actually worked with OSU and really tried to understand and address some of this idea. They called it people being like cognitively left behind because of all those assumptions and that you mentioned, Ben. And they ran this pretty strong, I'm going to call it a program, but it was more of a change or something which they actually had new person, new team. They actually really ran like any time there's a new person, you've got to think of that as a whole new team. And I thought that was quite a great way of thinking about this. New person, new team. We start again. We
Yeah.
test all
Yeah.
those. We test all those
But that
assumptions.
speaks a lot to that concept of power, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe not harmful exercise of power or control, but just sort of resorting out what the dynamic is.
And I think another piece of this, and Ben, you asked like, should safety professionals be asking these kinds of questions? I think yes. Some of these we may be able to come up with, potential interventions on to help support people. But at the end of the day, there is always going to be a tension, even in my work where I'm dealing with situations where there are people that I have power over, and there's other people who have power over me. I know it's insane. Not for long. Uh,
Really?
yeah.
Really? Who?
Uh, and
Sounds nice. Is it nice?
yeah, yeah, it's pretty good. It's pretty great. I'm not gonna lie. But
They're
but like
massaging my feet right now, and
but like me as a leader trying to do the right thing, like I am aware that
That's
I
how Rudd's performance review goes.
I
Look,
tried.
I was trying.
I
Okay.
was trying to, yeah, there's my
I can try
autobiography.
harder. I
Look,
can
I
try
was
harder.
trying. Um, but like trying to do the right thing, like I just know that there are going to be times though that I'm going to say the wrong thing. It's going to be interpreted in a
That's
way
a
that
lot of
like
times.
I'm, yeah, yeah, of course. The
This is
assumption
the
is
this
I'm
is
saying the
this
wrong
is the
thing
this
most
is the
things.
at least the 27th time in the last year that you've said the wrong thing.
Yeah, this is fair. This is fair. Thank you for that.
Can't have the
But
wrong
like,
thing without run.
so I think back to your point about like where these decisions are consequential, one of the other things is understanding where these breakdowns in like common ground or understandings or relationships or psychological safety or whatever terminology we want to use are going to be consequential, and how can we quickly identify them and respond to them before they become catastrophic, right? Because eventually people are going to have misunderstandings. Eventually, like the contractors I work with, I'm going to be having a bad day and I'm just going to shoot off an email that's going to come off the wrong way. And now all of a sudden they're going to not tell me about
I
an issue at the job site that maybe is
It's
important,
just shooting off
I heard
anything is
I heard
tough on the
I
job
heard a
site.
story this
unless you're
week.
at Texas.
I heard yeah, well, I heard a story this week from a guy in a construction business who was talking about this project and was like um the logistics the logistics lead for the project and the project manager fucking hated each other at like a personal level. Like one must have been a Nazi and one must have been like a Jew or something. Like they really fucking hated each other.
Wow.
Um,
That's a
and
lot. That's a lot of hate.
the
You know,
project
we
was
we do no editing on this podcast.
so
Dave might be our first.
they didn't.
Yes.
There was a religious aspect to it, but I forget, so I just sort of ad-libbed.
Okay.
But the project was like $90 million over budget, and put it
Wow.
all down to the fact that these two critical roles just didn't speak to each other, and just did their own shit, right? And so, I think it's important, right? Like, yeah, I don't know where I was going with that, other than when Ron, you were talking about kind of finding out where these where
Just
these
trailed off
relationships
a little bit
and
there.
are consequential. Like that's a
Yeah.
pretty consequential relationship if it's not
Yeah.
um, in
Yeah.
the
So
in the right
so
power
what do you
balance.
do? So what do you do about it? I mean, if you're the safety person, you're seeing these things, you're seeing, look, man, this is gonna bite us.
I guess kill Nazis, isn't that where we started?
We
Yeah. I
started
mean
with
that problem
well,
would
we
be
said
easy to
punching.
solve. Punch in the junk.
Oh,
Junk
Rochambeau, you
punch.
for it?
Step
Yep.
one, take dominant hand. Step two, form fist with dominant hand. Step
Dominant
three,
hand. That's now
find
it's
junk
now
of
it's
Nazi.
power. Now it's
Step
Dominant.
power
four,
gradient again. Dominant hand.
punch junk of Nazi.
It's all about control for Ron.
Step five, Miller time.
That was a
Another
real
time.
question.
That's how you. That's how we now solve every decision thing about power. It's just
That's
who gets to
our
decide? I'll
procedure.
Rochambeau you for it.
Yep.
Power
Oh,
power differential procedure.
so what can we do? Right?
I thought I just solved it.
Yeah, it was
You
done.
did not.
I
Wrong.
think finding the relationships, finding the teams, finding the people that power balance really needs to be thought through. It can be vertically in the organization, it can be horizontal coordination type requirements, but just paying attention to power and how it flows and how it impacts kind of roles and decisions and communication in your organization. Like,
Mhm.
I don't know if organizations are that focused on it. They look at org charts and they just go, that guy's a dick, and that's about it.
Yeah.
But that's the funny part too, that sort of tolerance for people being a dick in an organization,
Well, we
right? It's
tolerate
like
it on the podcast all the time.
Ah. Both
I'm
Ben and
right
I are like,
here.
is it me? Is it
That's
me?
it.
Does he mean me? Yes, he does.
But it is one of those things, right? People, if you ask, like, people always know who you're talking about in an
Yeah.
organization, except me and Ron. But they're like, oh yeah,
No,
yeah,
they know.
that.
No, no, no. We know.
And and I
I
think
got
it's
you.
really hard to have those conversations when that sort of thing is tolerated,
Yeah.
right? Because the organization says, look, we value this open communication. We value being able to ask a question or bring something up. But we also value keeping that guy around that everyone knows is an asshole and has alienated people and driven people away from the organization for years. So if you're one of the, I'm going to say just hundreds of CEOs that's listening, um, I think that is a really important part of what leaders can do is sort of demonstrate that abuse of power isn't something that we tolerate.
So you could
Because I
run
think
like
it's
a
hard to have
survey. You
that
could run like
discussion.
a survey in your organization that just go
Who's
send
the
it out to
dick?
people. Go list the names of the top three dicks in the organization, and then
This is, oh,
Just
I think
not,
we're
yeah.
onto something. The
Yeah.
dick survey.
the dick survey.
I mean, to me,
That's a different thing, Ben, and I think that HR would have an
yeah,
issue with
that's
most, but
fair.
I
Almost
think they'd
fair.
have
That was
Yeah.
in the bar at the Punk Rock Museum.
Oh,
yes,
yes.
We very
the
nearly.
that was a dick survey. Sample size of one.
Yes. Substantial, substantial. But
High average.
um, but I think what you're talking about, Ben, gets to the broader point about like take this sort of these power relationships, teaming, all of these things, and basically our general interactions and in relations seriously as a safety
Yeah.
factor, control is not the right word, but like intervention, like whatever it is, source of resilience. You know what I mean? Like taking that seriously does include like, hey, there's some shit we're not going to tolerate here. Like just period. Like if you're a fucking asshole, I don't care if you're good at your job. Like
Like
that's
you can smash cans of triple expanding foam, but you can't be an asshole about
About it.
exactly.
it. Just be cool, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, clean up after yourself,
Sure. Yeah.
please.
Wipe the blood off the ground.
Yeah.
That is that is it. Like what Jeremy said just then. Um,
What?
Ron's been renamed.
Have I just been renamed?
yeah.
That's
Yeah.
Oh, this
great.
is just if you ever listen to a few episodes, you might see this as a bit of a running joke. So it's not the first. It's not the first. Not our first radio, Ben and mine. Um, but I think that's the point. Like we're conflating this idea of like power, inappropriate sort of power imbalances with people who are just dicks, and I think that's kind of the point, right? Which is if someone isn't open to someone else's point of view, or isn't sort of involving people, or isn't kind of sharing information, and all those things that we're talking about, the impacts of kind of like these power imbalances, and where people think that they're better than others or know more than others. That's just
Yeah, Dave.
in a dick. Yeah, so that's just me role modeling so that listeners get a really good idea of what this looks
You
like.
too could reach
I
heights
appreciate
like
that.
this.
You
Yeah,
too.
this is what
Hey,
it
I'm not
should
the
be.
one who's got fired this week.
Not
Well,
yet.
not yet. That's a tough one. Oh shit. I look, um, I worry very often about, and I don't know why this podcast is sort of unserious to begin with, but I try to think about in the entirety of this hour, if we have about 30 seconds of actual useful information, which is again sort of back to the what do you do, right? Paying attention is one thing, identifying is one thing, but can I intervene as a safety person maybe without positional leadership, but with some influence to go in
Well,
and
I
say,
think.
look, you don't have to like one another, but what are we going to have to do to have this conversation? Or
Well,
what
is
would it
this not
take to?
whole? You're closer to the industry than me, but is this not how the whole CRM sort of crew resource management sort of
Yep.
language and principles and training programs and practices kind of came about? Like,
Yes.
and I think like as a health and safety person, like be familiar with CRM principles and content, and go, how do I build this into more of a core capability in some of these roles that I think it's important for? And there's a paper that Yop
Oh boy, it's not
wrote,
Dave's paper, I should
not
point
mine,
out.
but it is sort of the same. It is the
It's
same,
in the
like
same tier.
the same school. It's
It's
like
tier
when
one.
Ron now takes credit for everything that Dave Woods has ever written because he's in the same lab, right? Yeah.
Yeah, this is definitely something that I do.
He's got a hell of a catalog, that Ron Gant.
And
Yeah,
yeah,
that
that
guy.
Ron. He's
Yeah.
going back through and putting and writing his name on all the papers.
Yeah, just Ron
and
Gant and
and
Richard
I'm
Koch.
in the
Ron
et
Gant and
al.
Eric Nagel.
and Dr. Ron Gant. Um, but Yop wrote this thing about how CRM took off
Wow,
outside.
yeah, you're allowed to bring up. Yup,
Yeah,
that's solid stuff.
how CRM took off outside the cockpit, right? And now we've got BRM, like bridge resource management in maritime industry, and the oil and gas industry have put something out there for crew resource management, like on drill rigs and a whole bunch of
Yep.
things. So, yeah, maybe that's the sort of body of work that can help people understand how do I
And
reduce
and
the
non
power gradient.
like non-technical skills would be maybe the bigger sort of umbrella if you're doing some research on this stuff.
Yep.
Couple good books. Rona Flynn, I think.
Did
Mhm.
Amy Edmondson work? You mentioned teaming before, Ron. That's
Sure.
there's a
Yeah.
book there. Um,
Yep.
yeah, all done, solved. Just get a little bit more, get yourself some psychological safety, and
Just slather it all over everything. It's like butter.
yeah, straight over to the field.
Delicious. We should make it, man. I'm thinking of a shirt with a stick of butter labeled psychological safety. You just smear it on everything. That's probably happening in that photo behind Dave.
It probably is.
Yeah,
Like the dude though that's right there,
cooking
he's
with grease.
just busy playing guitar, and everyone else,
Yeah.
like
Can't be
everything else is
bothered.
a complete shit show.
Apparently, this show when I was dragging out this photo showed like in '87 in New York or something, and like they'd sold 500 tickets, and apparently like there was 5,000 people there. So.
It's sort of the opposite of this podcast.
Yeah.
And so Ben,
I have a
from
I have a
our
pre-podcast shirt on, by the way. Ron, you've got one of these, right? The punk
Yeah,
rock
dude.
safety black flag looking
well, fuck
shirt.
you. Um,
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
yeah. But
Fun
this is
hat, Dave.
this is obviously there was no one yelling out "fuck you, fire marshal" at this gig.
Sure. Are you guys gonna come out for the Punk in the Park, Denver?
It's pretty much
Gay?
the exact same lineup as Field Trip One minus NoFX.
Close, yeah.
Yeah. Propaganda's there. It's a solid addition. Some other stuff.
Didn't see
When you have
Pennywise
proper,
on the list.
you actually have bad religion there, not just them like just showing up and
Oh, sure.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Not just one or two dudes.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good show.
Maybe
Bad
it's
religion.
July, isn't it? July. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know if we're quite ready to announce it as Field Trip number 2 yet, because I thought Field Trip number 2 was going to be Australia, but it could be a Field
It's
Trip one.
supposed to be.
It could be a
One
1.5.
Field trip.
1.3.
You made us
Next
do that
planet.
shitty fucking 15 and a half episode in
That was a great episode.
so we could,
It was.
Definitely one of the hits.
But
we
we
could
were
we could
we
do it.
were in fine form.
We could do a Field Trip 1.5. Just a
Yeah.
little stocking stuffer.
Stocking stuffer. I love it.
The follow-up to Dave's autobiography.
Stocking stuffer.
Oh, God.
Well, we can't all be like
Fine.
Jeremy.
I'm gonna have a documentary about my life called Messy Middle.
What?
What?
Dave said the messy middle earlier.
Oh,
It's not the extremes, it's the messy
Yes.
middle. And I thought,
Yeah.
that's it.
that was
That's
my
Where I
it.
live.
that was my high school
That's
nickname.
it. That's our punk band name.
The messy middle. Boys, we've solved it.
All right,
I think we solved it.
that's
Good job.
absolutely solved. Good
High
job.
five,
Dave and I
guys.
went to Casa Bonita.
Yeah.
We've somehow managed to reference Jeremy, triple expanding foam. I love that for you. There were dick
And,
punches throughout, which is great.
Yeah. Junk punches.
Yep.
and Ron,
And
we're hanging out in a few days. Fun without Ben.
that's the rumor.
That's the
Yep.
rumor. Cool.
A lot of build up to it, but it's going to be good.
I think so.
It's going to be something.
It's going to be something.
I'll just be here sad.
Yeah. Later.
Later, bitches.